now, and there's one thing that's been really, really consistent over that 15-year time period, and that is that our clients have children, nieces, and nephews that they care deeply about. If you're joining us today, chances are you're one of those people. We might work with your parents, an aunt, an uncle, and I'm so glad that you could join us today as we kick off this new webinar series called Next, Planning for the Next Generation. Now, I know some of you might even have been guilted into signing up or maybe even bribed, or you might just be one of those people who are very passionate planners and have already put a big focus on planning for your financial future. Regardless of how you got here, I have one main goal today, and that's for you to get acquainted with a resource that is here for you. That resource is the team that you see on your screen right now. At the Botsford Group, we're a team of financial planners who work with approximately 400 families. I want to back up a little bit, and when I say 400 families, I want to put an emphasis on the word families, because our work is not limited to our clients. We extend the expertise that we have to anybody that our clients cared about. I noticed that some of the folks who registered today are actually our clients, and maybe you're previewing for your children or you've been asked to take some notes. I'm hoping, as far as fingers crossed, that the recording of today's presentation will go smoothly and we'll be able to post that on our website for future reference. Now, before we get started, I wanted to point out a few things. Because there's a good number of people on today's webinar, everyone's on mute mode. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type it in the box on the right-hand corner of your screen. And I'm hoping towards the end that we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. But if we run out of time, of course, you can email us following the presentation, and one of us will get back to you. Okay, so now when you hear the word financial planner, you might think of investments or insurance, both of which are really, really important. But as we sit here and we look at this picture here, I think at the Botsford Group we take a much more holistic approach to financial planning than most people that call themselves financial planner or financial advisor. The diagram that you see on your screen right now looks a little bit like a helicopter pad, which is actually pretty appropriate. What we do for our clients is we try to sit in the middle of this 4-quadrant puzzle. Now, on the top, you're going to see the category that says investments or investment planning. This is what I call the money piece. This is everything from asset allocations, which could be picking the right types of investments based on your current situation, to budgeting, to modeling, things like how much do I need to save between now and retirement, how much can I live on in retirement. But I want to challenge you to think about this. You could have the most beautiful portfolio of investments, but if something could happen and it could be gone in an instant, what good did it do for you? This leads me into the next category, which is risk management. I'm going to go back to this. So see that off on the right there? Now, in risk management, I have learned that, especially in my time in the financial industry, that we all have risks. Every single one of us has risks that are individual to us, and some of us share those same risks. At the Botsford Group, and I'm sure as our clients have heard us say many, many times, we often refer to these risks as potential train wrecks. And we'd like to put a plan in place for these what-ifs. This part of our process stemmed really from our founder's early years. See, Erin Botsford found herself, she always says this, and it's cute, as a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks, pretty early in life. Now, when Erin was 11, her dad passed away suddenly and left her mom, Erin, and her 4 siblings with a whopping $10,000 life insurance policy. Now, backing up, her father was a brilliant man. He was a professor, a PhD. He just hadn't gotten around to planning. Overnight, Erin and her family went from middle-class Americans to literally food stamps. Fast forward a few years, and when Erin was 16, she was driving to her first real job, and it was at McDonald's. And unfortunately, she was involved in a car accident. She hit a man on a motorcycle, and that gentleman was killed. Criminal trial and civil trial would follow. Erin tells the story best, and she can remember meeting with an attorney with her mom. So imagine yourself 16 years old, you're trying to figure out what's next. And this attorney told them, Well, you know, this decision was, it's an economic decision. If Erin would plead guilty, the attorney would enter that plea for no charge, but if she wanted to defend herself, it was going to cost money. It was devastating. Her mom had picked up her purse and thanked the attorney and said, "Thank you, but we have no money, therefore we have no choice. She'll have to plead guilty." She learned that day that money buys you choices. The story does get better, and Erin's older brother had a great idea and had suggested that her mom take out a second mortgage to provide the funds needed for Erin's defense. And wow, it worked. Through this defense, it was proven that Erin had not hit that man on the motorcycle. He hit her. Case dismissed. But the civil trial came next, and Erin felt the fear that comes along with the potential of losing everything, including their home. That is why asset protection is so high on our list. So going back up to that piece as far as that risk management, if you could get in a car accident, everything that you've worked hard to accumulate, and some of you are, you know, in a position to inherit different funds from your family, if something could happen and have that be all taken away, what good does it do to have this, you know, beautiful plan in place as far as beautiful investments? Now, Erin, by the time she was 22, had saved up $25,000, and think back of everything that she went through and think back to the timing. This was huge, and the first time I heard that, I was really, really impressed. Then I found out how she did it, or how she did the majority of it, and she had gone on the Wheel of Fortune and won. And so as far as was I impressed before, yes, but now I was really impressed because I just absolutely love Wheel of Fortune. But the best part of the story was the irony of that final puzzle. And so think of everything that she had been through up to that point, and that final puzzle was down in the dumps, which how appropriate. Now Erin sought counsel, the wise thing to do, looked to somebody to help her invest this money, and she found a stockbroker. Within 6 months, that account was worthless. Ouch. Some of the risks that Erin was slapped with in the face are individual risks, like a premature death or a car accident. Others are investment related, like the stock market taking a crash or the real estate market taking a nosedive. For our clients, we have a systematic process of going through these risks on an individual level, and a lot of times we can reduce, transfer, or eliminate that risk. It might be through a trust document or some other legal tools, or through an insurance policy. Our goal in this piece of our process is to help others get their financial house in order so they don't have to experience anything like what Erin went through. Now on the third quadrant, you'll sit here and you'll see estate planning. Now on the estate planning piece, we'd likely spend a lot of time on that with whoever invited you to join us today. I do have to say that this is an absolute passion of mine. It has been from, you know, the beginning of my career, but it's definitely been reignited over the last year because I've lost my father and I lost one of my best friends at the age of 44 years old. Listen to me on this one, please. If you have minor children or if you plan to have children in the future, this is so important. This includes making sure your legal documents, your wills, your trusts are in place. It's also making sure that your family would be okay financially if something happened to you. Now in this category, and we're going to do a whole nother series of webinars on the estate planning piece, so I'm just going to touch upon this a little bit. But one of the top misconceptions I've seen in the area of estate planning is, the top one, I don't work outside the home, so I don't need any life insurance. For stay-at-home parents that have small children, this is so far from being accurate. You really do need to sit there and analyze from a life insurance need what both parties need as far as coverage. The other one that we often hear from our clients talking about their kids is, I don't have much, or they don't have much in terms of assets, so I really don't need to worry about estate planning documents for them, or they don't need to worry about estate planning documents. And that's absolutely false. Estate planning documents go way farther than, you know, a will. There's financial powers, there's medical powers of attorney, there's directions for guardianship wishes for your minor kids, there's distributions of your personal assets. In my opinion, I mean, everyone should have a will. Again, we're not going to go into that into great detail because we will have future discussions on that piece. Now the last quadrant titled Family Office, you'll see that over here, and that is part of why we're doing what we're doing today. So when we sit there and we look from a family office standpoint, a lot of our clients are worried about their families. They're worried about money passing to the next generation. They're worried what would happen to their grandchildren if their son or their daughter or their son-in-law or daughter-in-law passed away. In addition to general planning, this might include looking at the tax piece of the equation. We often will sit there and analyze everything from income taxes to timing of transactions, because I don't think there's anyone that wants to pay more to the IRS than they need to. So on this next piece, I'm going to have you guys take out a piece of paper if you don't already have one, because there's going to be a few of these dates that you might want to jot down, and I'll give you a few little homework items to do between now and the next webinar as well. So if you'll take out a piece of paper, and there's no worries, I kind of have this set up like a report card as far as you answering yes or no. There's not going to be any failing grades, but I do hope that this exercise would help you narrow down the areas that you need to sit back and focus on. On a few of these, I'll go into a good amount of detail, but on others, I'll just give you some dates for future webinars where we'll go over these topics so that you can mark your calendars accordingly. All right, so completing the report card, the money piece. Okay, so this has to do with going back to our 4 quadrants. The next few questions are going to have to do with that investment piece. So I'll just read these off and you guys can answer for yourselves, but I currently keep a budget and review my expenses and income. Yes or no? Now, there's lots of different tools that are out there as far as budgeting and, sitting there making sure that you're being a good steward of the funds that you have. One of the best pieces of advice that I have heard, and I have seen it work time and time again, is somebody that's just starting out, or, I mean, you don't have to be starting out, it's never too late to start, but to sit here and you take 10% of your income and you put that into savings, no matter what that is. I'm trying to do it with our kids as far as just at the young ages that they're at. But anything that they're getting, put 10% aside for, let's call it a rainy day or retirement. Then as you work and as you get more experience, you're going to get pay raises, you're going to get bonuses. I have seen people into their 40s, 50s, 60s that have done this the right way, and it is magic. They've taken 50% of that increase in income, and they have put that aside in savings and invested it. And they've taken the other 50% and sat there and increased their lifestyle. So think about that. When you sit there and you get that raise or you get that bonus, if you can be diligent about taking half of that and putting that aside for retirement, it's not depriving yourself for forever, because you're sitting there getting some immediate gratification from that other 50%. But I have seen this work time and time again. So in this category, again, it's worth repeating. Start out saving 10% of everything that you're bringing in, and then take 50% of any increases in income that you have and put that aside. Seems pretty simple, but I think that's why it works so well. On the next question, I'm confident I am well diversified and have investments that have the potential to perform well in any stock market cycles. Now, if the answer to that is no, I would suggest that you guys start out reading Aaron Botsford's book. It was a bestseller on Amazon. It's a beautifully written book. It's called The Big Retirement Risk, Running Out of Money Before You Run Out of Time. And anybody that's joining us today, we'd be happy to send you a complimentary copy of it. So just send us an email afterwards and we can put that in the mail. Now, some of it is really, as far as the book, is more appropriate for people that are 10 or so years away from retirement or less. But the education portion of this on the different types of investments is so valuable, regardless of what stage of investment life you're in. I think that when you sit there and you look at like a typical 401k, a lot of times you'll see only stock and bonds. And the reality is there's a whole nother world out there. Every time that you hear that, oh, the stock market took a crash, there's typically another side to the equation. There's people that can make money from an investment standpoint, whether the market's going up, down, or sideways. There's not two different categories as far as stocks and bonds. There's a whole other world out there that not a lot of people are exposed to till much, much later in life. And so if you can get some education in that area, and like I said, the book, I think over half of the book is focused on that education piece, just talking about different types of investments. We're also going to have a webinar on September 23rd. It'll be at the same time as far as this lunch hour at 11:30, and I'll put up the dates towards the end of the next webinar. But mark your calendar for this, that date as far as September 23rd on this if you don't feel confident as far as you weren't able to answer yes. Okay, so going back to the risk management piece, let's look at the questions underneath there. I have reviewed my property and casualty insurance coverage, and I am confident I have the right dollar amount of coverage. Yes or no? I'm going to put these next two together, and the next one says I have an umbrella liability policy in place. So I'll kind of toggle back and forth to these. So I think one of the biggest holes, I'll start with this one as far as on the umbrella liability policy, that is by far one of the biggest holes that we see. You would probably be surprised at how many extremely well-off people, new prospective clients that we meet with that will tell us that they don't have a basic umbrella liability policy. And what umbrella liability policy is, if you think about it like its name. So it's basically an umbrella over and above the coverage that you have on your homeowners and your car insurance. So think about this. If you caused an accident today, chances are if anybody had to go to the hospital, so you're in the car accident happens, you hit a minivan of, full of a family. If anybody in that minivan had to go to the hospital, let alone multiple people, most likely your basic coverage limits on this question here would not even cover the emergency medical care that would be needed. So when you look at just what's minimally needed as far as state law, it's not going to be enough. And so what happens in that scenario? If you haven't had anybody go through it, it's a pretty harsh reality. And so what happens if your insurance coverage isn't enough to cover, they go to you and they sit there and they, they shake out the piggy bank and they try to figure out what you have. And some people think, well, I don't really have that much, so I don't need to worry about that. They're not going to get anything. But the real reality is they can garnish your wages too. So that's one of probably your biggest assets is your earning ability. So it is so, so important to sit here and get that piece of the equation set. So as far as I have reviewed the property and casualty insurance coverage, and I'm confident I have the right dollar amount of coverage in the umbrella liability, give your property and casualty insurance folks a call. Maybe you've got USAA or State Farm or one of the other Geico. Give them a call and have them walk through the limits, see where you're currently at, and then get some pricing on an umbrella policy. You would be absolutely shocked in a positive way on how cheap coverage you can get. And so start with $1 million of coverage and then go from there. And like I said, you're likely going to be pretty pleasantly surprised at how cheap it can be for such a big dollar amount of coverage. And so you can think about umbrella liability coverage as a blanket for you to sit there and go over your coverage that's going to be there above and beyond. Okay, so on this next category, still under risk management, I've looked at my personal risk and I have taken the steps to transfer or eliminate that risk. So I mentioned earlier that we've got a process that takes our clients through the what ifs. We've got a nice little concise piece that we can send out, especially if you have a job that, I would consider to be highly litigious. Maybe you're a business owner, or, we've got some, I saw on the list that we've got a few doctors, physicians. Some jobs just inherently have a little bit more liability risk. It could be, looking through your coverage as far as your medical practice coverage, as far as malpractice. If you sit on any boards, looking at that director and officers coverage, even of nonprofits, it's really, really important. So we've got a whole list, and we will also be touching a little bit on that on June 17th. That's one of our webinars coming up, and so we'll be focused again on this risk management piece. Now the next two items, on estate planning are really important. So again, I mentioned as far as that I've had this passion just be reignited in me, having seen what my mom went through with the passing of my father and all of the hassles that come with that, administratively speaking, and then also with my dear friend Brenda. So if you do not have a basic will, I mean, put that at the top of your list. You've got to do that. Now, we've got offices in Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta. If you happen to be in one of those cities, we have contacts as far as attorneys in both of those cities. If you happen to live outside of there, those two cities, we've got some resources that we can get a good referral. The documents, a lot of times as far as basic wills and things like that are not super expensive, but you absolutely want to use somebody that's qualified in this area of expertise because there can be so many specifics that you need to take into account, especially anyone with special needs, kids. I can't tell you how important it is to sit there and take this question very, very, very seriously. If you have wills and you have trust, we have a process of reviewing those with our clients. We try to do it every 3 years, so I would definitely recommend you get those back out. Sometimes, you know, births can happen as far as new kids come into the picture, grandkids. Sometimes it can be a state of residency that's changed. A lot of people don't realize that if they move out of state, they have got to get those documents redone, that a lot of states have some very, very specific things that they require in there. So you just want to make sure that you're taking a look at those every 3 years, and then if there's obviously any big events as far as a birth, a death, a divorce, a move, that's when you want to sit here and put this on the top of the list. Now this one, we're going to have, this is what we're going to spend the majority of the time on June 17th, because I think that this is so, so, so important. I am confident I have enough life insurance. So I think that, you know, being a financial planner and just having friends and family ask from time to time as far as, well, how much is enough? I think that there is so much confusion out there. I think that nobody knows as far as like, well, I think I have enough, but do I have enough? So we're going to go through everything from, you know, how do you calculate how much life insurance you need. I've got some pretty simple formulas. Obviously, there's going to be people that, you know, don't fit these molds, but I'll have a few formulas for you guys to kind of fill in the blanks. And then we'll also go through different types of life insurance. There's everything from whole life policies to universal life to term policies to group coverage that you might have available from your work to, you know, going out and finding individual coverage. So we'll talk about how you get the biggest bang for your buck, and then we'll also talk about as far as what are your options if you have some health issues, because sometimes it's that law of, you know, you never want something until you can't have it. A lot of times folks that have had a scare come up or have had a history of cancer or, you know, something like that, they're sitting there saying, you know, can I get life insurance? And believe it or not, there are some ways to get coverage even if you have some problems. Now, as far as from a cost standpoint, I think some people don't look at this because they think, well, I just can't afford it. And if you hear somebody say, oh, you know, you need $2 million of life insurance coverage, you might just, you know, take one of those deep breaths like, oh my goodness, $2 million of life insurance, that's got to be expensive. Well, just yesterday I saw a set of quotes last week for somebody come across my desk, and here was a healthy 35-year-old male. He was going to be getting $2 million of coverage for less than $120 a month. So if you sit there and you figure what you're spending on a nice dinner out, or, you know, a couple bottles of wine, or, you know, even your Starbucks coffee, you can afford this. And I would argue to say it's not a luxury item. This is absolutely a necessity. And I've seen firsthand in my own life that our days are numbered and life is precious, and the best gift that you can give your family is making sure that they would be taken care of if a premature death faced you or your spouse. Obviously, everything in the life insurance is dependent upon age and health, but like I said, most people would be pleasantly surprised when they see how expensive it can be to protect their family here. Now, on the next category, as far as tax planning, so these two are pretty interesting. So take a look as far as I've looked to see if I am maximizing all the tax-deferred investment opportunities available to me. Yes or no. And so when we sit there and we look at tax-deferred investment opportunities, a lot of you probably have access to 401ks. Other of you might have access to different deferred comp plans through your work. Some of you who are business owners or are physicians that own your own practice, you have even more tools available to you as far as being able to put away large sums of money in a tax-deferred way. And so taking a look at that, we will talk about that on September 23rd, but it's one of the things. So again, if you can't answer that yes and can mark your calendar for September 23rd, we'll talk about that. We're also going to be talking about on that September webinar, I'm contributing to a 401k plan, and I've analyzed if a Roth or a regular 401k is better for me. So some of you have maybe heard about Roths, maybe you have one. A lot of people have heard of Roth IRAs, but what most people don't realize, because there used to be some pretty strict income requirements on any time you heard about the word Roth, and that's as it pertained to IRAs. So if you made too much money, too bad, Roth IRAs were not going to be an option for you. But most people don't know that within the 401k world, Roth 401ks are available to everybody. So regardless of how much money you make, you and your household combined, you still have access to a Roth 401k. And if you have a little while before you're going to be drawing money as far as looking towards retirement, the Roth 401k can be a huge, huge planning tool, and you can just sit there and see from a time value of money how important it can be to sit here and analyze this. Now, on a regular IRA, you are going to get an immediate deduction as far as from any money that you put in there from an income perspective. On a Roth, you don't get that, but what you do get is anything that grows to. I'll just give an extreme example. Let's say that over the next few years you were able to put $300,000 into a 401k, and let's say you weren't going to be drawing on that for another 20 plus years, and that $300,000 grows to $1 million. You will never pay income taxes if you have that within a Roth. So $300,000 grew to $1 million, you will never ever pay income taxes on that. Versus, let's go back to the regular example. If you put $300,000 into a regular 401k and it grew to $1 million and then you start drawing it out, you are going to pay taxes on every single dollar of that $1 million as you draw it out. So it can be a huge, huge planning tool, and one that's definitely not talked about a lot. And so one of the things that you might do between now and September is go ahead and call your HR folks or whoever handles your 401k plan and ask them if there is a Roth component or option to the plan. If there's not, ask for one to be added. You would be surprised. I can think of 3 major corporations that we have had clients go in and ask, hey, can you add this, can you add this, can you add this? And you know, that whole squeaky wheel theory, I think that they finally nagged enough that they got it added. So I think that from a company perspective and an HR perspective, that they're wanting to offer these options because they realize what a valuable tool it can be. Now on this last piece of the report card, I'm taking advantage of the best college savings tools for my children's future education, yes or no? That's been a big hot topic as far as there's all kinds of plans out there. You might have heard of UTMAs or UGMAs. You might have heard of the state provided plans. You might have looked into 529 plans. Maybe you even have these already set up for your children, or if we've got clients listening, your grandchildren. One of the things that, that we're going to go through in one of the future webinars is an analysis of all of those different plans to see, hey, are you using the one that's the best one given your circumstances? A lot of it has to do with the kids' ages. I'll talk a little bit about the 529 plans just because I think they're one of the most popular ones right now. So remember what I mentioned on that Roth 401k that you put a certain dollar amount in? And if it grows to, you know, 300,000 grows to $1 million, you'll sit there and never pay income taxes on any of that within the Roth. The 529 plans are the same exact way, but instead of those monies being used for retirement, those monies will be used for college expenses. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you were to sit there and put in, you know, $10,000 a year into a 529 plan for, let's say you're able to do it for 5 years. That's a total of $50,000. And let's say the kids are young, so you've got a lot of time. If that $50,000 were to grow to $200,000 between now and when the child needed to draw out the money for their education, as long as they use that money for qualified education expenses, they're never going to pay any income taxes on this. So it's a huge tool from a tax perspective, because if you use a lot of the other accounts, you're going to sit there, and as you sit there and cash out of different investments, you're going to get hit with a tax bill each and every time that you do it. But in the 529 plans, they're a very nice gift that the IRS gave us, and I think that everyone should be taking a look to see if it makes sense to do. Now, there's all kinds of different 529 plans, and there's 529 plans specific to certain states, to where if you reside in a state that has a state income tax, it's definitely worth taking a look at. But that's one of the things that we can do for you, is help you sit there and analyze as far as what makes sense. Now, the timing of the webinar where we're going to focus on this college piece is going to be in December. And so as we sat there as a group and went through the calendar of putting these on as far as once per quarter, we thought December would be a great time to talk about this. With the holidays just a few weeks later, we figured you guys might be able to talk your parents and maybe some other relatives into contributing to the college plan for your kids versus getting some of the duplicate presents that your kids already have and that you don't have room for anyway. We're going to go through some illustrations as far as how much do you need to save, how to figure out what that dollar amount is, and then we'll also talk about the different types of accounts. I can tell you as a mom of 4 kids that will someday be heading to college, God willing, this topic is near and dear to my heart, and we will definitely spend some good time focusing on that. So topics and dates for the upcoming webinars, I'm going to leave this up on your screen for a little bit so you can jot these down and maybe add them to your Outlook calendars. We'll also be sending out notifications as the dates get closer. But here you'll see as far as the different categories, the dates and time. We're going to try to continue to do these over lunchtime, hoping that we can capture as big of an audience as possible. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're hoping that the recording of these goes well and will be a resource that you can, maybe it's your, brother or sister-in-law that, one of these webinars that you listen to and you're like, wow, I wish they could have been able to listen in, or a friend that you can forward it to. So we're definitely trying to build up a library here. Now, I think that we have a few minutes as far as questions, but before we dive into the questions, just in case anybody has to drop off here, if there's one thing that you guys take away from today's meeting, my hopes would be that you know that the Botsford group is a resource available to you guys. Every one of our clients is assigned a relationship manager, so if you have any questions, you can email us or call us. You'll see the 2 numbers listed there as far as the Dallas office as well as the Atlanta office. You've gotten emails from us as far as on the invitations. You can feel free just to respond to those emails. It goes to a general team that will be able to direct your question to somebody that can answer any questions that you might have. And then I had to show a quick little picture. I thought it was so appropriate. So if your financial house looks a little bit like this, please, please, please know that, again, the Botsford Group, we're a resource available here. Someone that we work with cares enough about you guys to invite you to join us today. And because they care about you, we care about you, and we're available here to help you. As far as any questions, as far as was that a real picture? Unfortunately, yes. It was actually a real picture of one of my boys' rooms last night, and I thought that it was too funny. So don't let your financial house look like this. So I'll turn it over as far as if anybody has any questions at this point in time. If you'll type in your question, we'll be happy to address that. Thank you so much for joining us for anybody that's dropping off. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions coming in, so I will leave you guys to enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And again, if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask, or if I'm cutting off too short and didn't allow you to type, please feel free to give us a call or email, and one of our team members will be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.